the Buffalo Bills lost to the Denver Broncos 33-30 in overtime. Unfortunately, the only thing that we were talking about for the remainder of the weekend was whether or not it was a catch or interception. And that's kind of the downfall of that game. But honestly, if we're going to be completely honest, the Buffalo Bills should never have been in that situation in the first place. It was the first time ever I thought that Josh Allen honestly did not play up to Josh Allen's standards. And he costed the team the game, in my opinion. And as a result of it, they elected to fire Sean McDermott, effective on Monday, I believe that announcement came. So automatically, it becomes the hottest and most attractive NFL coaching job in the cycle, at least in my opinion. I know I said the Raiders last week, so it's definitely changed from the Raiders to the Bills. But unfortunately, on Wednesday, Terry Pegula and general manager Brandon Beane, who was not fired, held a press conference. And, well, Terry Pegula spilled the beans on a lot of things. And honestly, if you walked out of there, you might not think the Buffalo Bills job is that attractive anymore. Now, guys, the main story is obviously Keon Coleman. Where do you guys want to start with this? Because this is just an absolute train wreck for a guy that was drafted in the first round 2 years ago. Like, this is upsetting. He's only 22 years old. 22 years old, and he's shown promise in the regular season. Yes, he's had some drops here and there, and you wish that he would probably catch those, but it's not like the guy does not have any touchdowns, had 30 receptions this past year. No, he's a solid, productive wide receiver in the NFL. Did he perform up to Xavier Worthy, who was drafted just before him standards? Probably not, but still overall productive. So guys, where do you guys see this going from here? Brandon, we'll go with you first.
Listen, I just want to say first that that you're right. You know, Josh Allen and the Bills in general, I think, didn't play up to their standards on Sunday, and that showed in what had potential to be a pretty pretty runaway Bills game. I want to go back to the second quarter quickly. James Cook we're in the red zone. We're about to score to go up 14-3 here, and James Cook fumbles the ball. They take it down, they score, they take the lead, and it basically from that point on, the Bills were chasing the game, just like so many other regular season games. But you're right, Justin, because another key moment was Josh Allen fumbling the ball right before the end of the first half. You can argue that Sean McDermott shouldn't have even had a play call in that situation. They should have taken the knee and gone to the locker room, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Thought about getting some yards. Who knows? Maybe a miracle play, get a field goal.
Yeah.
Instead, Josh fumbles the ball, and the Broncos take advantage to another 3 points. And that's 10 points where you take that off the board, maybe go the other way, and the Bills almost run away with that game. It's disappointing the way it all played out, like you said, Justin, with the way that Josh Allen played and the way that the team kind of responded in those, when it had a chance to be its most consistent at any time of the year. But in terms of where it goes and what happens with the whole Keon Coleman situation, I think I'd on any other team, I might be like, yeah, this guy probably won't be back. But for whatever reason, the Bills just have it. They've kind of zagged when you think they're going to do one other thing. They don't always do the same thing. I wouldn't be surprised if he was somehow still on the roster next season. But I think with the comments and obviously with the departure of Sean McDermott, who apparently, as they're going to say, he loved him and he wanted him. I think that kind of spells out what's going to eventually happen with this player. And it is unfortunate because you'd hate to see him go somewhere else and eventually bloom into something that could be a really productive receiver. So we'll have to see there, but it's definitely not looking too good for the Bills front office in terms of their function or dysfunction at this point. And yeah, you're right. Any prospective coach might take a second look at that team when they might not have done that before.
Yeah. Is it a complete joke what Pegula did yesterday? It's going to be one of the worst press
Very
conferences
unexpected.
I've seen an owner do in some time. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was very
he went up there.
There's no, it felt like he didn't really have a plan going up there. And it almost felt like he was, like, trying to relate to the fans, but also trying to blame everything on Sean McDermott, and it's kind of a lesson of, like, you gotta read the room. I don't think a lot of people were happy with the McDermott firing, maybe from more of a player perspective. You saw a lot of players coming out and standing for Sean McDermott. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was the right decision to have kept him if they decided to. I think something had to change, but then the decision to not get rid of both GM and coach, I think, rubbed a lot of fans and media and things like that the wrong way. So Bagula almost came in like trying to defend his guy rather than relate more to the fans and what the group that like just kind of get and develop like what does it mean to be a Bill? And so to go right at Keon Coleman, who we talked about it before we went on air, might be in Cancun, he might be on vacation, he might not even been listening to this press conference, and he must have gotten like 100 texts being like, dude, you got to watch this. Like somehow your
Oh,
name
yeah.
came up in a pretty brutal fashion. And then the screen grabs after. So if you're Keon Coleman, I don't know how you want to go back to that organization. I don't think the Bills will make any decisions. I actually agree, Brandon. I think like try it again. Maybe he's not your number one guy. If you can find a way to bring in someone through free agency, fantastic. I think there's still options for him to develop. It'd be third year coming in. But how do you, as a Keon Coleman, other than being like Josh Allen might be the best quarterback out there with Mahomes not playing likely at least a couple games next year, who knows? It's just a tough situation all around. I don't know how you made a situation worse and a press conference when it was already a little bit dire to going into it, I should say.
It was a press conference made to be damage control that in the aftermath actually needs more damage control.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But I think you nailed it, Amanda. We're really like what this comes down to is Terry Pegula being an out of touch owner with the fans. He thought he was providing what was wanted. And no, it was a half measure of firing Sean McDermott. Like I think if you had to group the Bills faithful, Bills Mafia into the categories where it's like, all right, both Bean and McDermott stay, there's probably some people in that category. Firing Bean and keeping McDermott, it's probably some people there. Firing both, maybe a lot of people there. There was basically nobody in the category of firing Sean McDermott and keeping Brandon Bean. And I think that throws everybody for a loop, as it kind of should. The
Mhm.
Keon Coleman thing. Sorry, Brandon, did you have something to jump in with there?
No, no, go ahead, keep going.
The only thing I wanted to add here, as far as the Keon Coleman thing is concerned, did you guys see the Najee Harris talking about what Mike Tomlin told him at the
Yeah,
end of
yeah,
last season?
yeah.
So, if for anyone who didn't, he said that if Mike Tomlin came up to him and said, "Najee, I talked to you like not just a player, like I talked to you like you're my son, and if you were my son, I would tell you not to return to the Steelers." And lo
Mhm.
and behold, he didn't. Yeah, if Keon Coleman was my son, I would not tell him to return to the Buffalo Bills. I think he's been done fairly dirty. I do get what you guys are saying, where it is an attractive situation. Like all it takes is Josh Allen to make it kind of logical. But man, that press conference is a bridge too far. I'm trying to think of like cross sports analogies of where that's happened. I can't. And if it were to happen with a team I support, I'd advise that player of the same thing. That was an ugly look.
The only thing I'd say
Yeah.
similar, and it wasn't regarding a player, it was just regarding a bad press conference from a GM. You literally have to go steps away from the Bills facility to go towards Kevin Adams, who was just fired this year,
Yeah.
when it felt like he didn't really know how to handle the media properly. Now, is everything to blame on his shoulders? I don't know. I mean, they went on the win streak, did the Sabres the minute he left the organization, but that's also managed by Terry Pegula. And again, the reference is basically
Common thread
suggesting
here.
that, yeah, we don't have palm trees. Nobody wants to come here and kind of the whining mentality, not really reading the room. So it wasn't
Yeah.
involving a player. It's just a tough. It's man, you've
Yeah.
really got to feel for Western New Yorkers today for
But
sure.
I also
Yeah.
feel like, when you talk about, like, Adams and not really knowing how to navigate the media as a GM or Christian talking about Pagula being out of touch, I think that's part of the reason why he kept Brandon Beane in place is because and this is even further to my point is now he's being promoted to a presidential role as well as being the GM. I don't think he will be the GM for long. Maybe he'll be this
Mm,
season, maybe whatever, however long they want to be. But eventually that role will be filled by somebody else. They don't have any kind of there was no middleman between literally the next person up from the general manager in terms of the Buffalo Bills organization is the owner, Terry Pegula. And I think that's why he didn't necessarily want to completely clean house, because I think for the first time, he would have had to make a very, very important decision about where that team is headed. And he would need to kind of find somebody who's on the same page as him, and then find a coach who's on the same page as that person, and kind of go from the beginning. In this place, in this kind of the way that he did it, it kind of takes the pressure off him in terms of finding the next kind of stopgap in terms of your coach, and staying within this window and not making a decision that potentially takes you out of it, and then all eyes are on you, right? So I think he did, what he thought was maybe the safe play. Eventually, Bean slides into that presidential role, and then Pegula probably doesn't even have to appear at these press conferences anymore, and he doesn't have to, fumble what he basically did yesterday, and be kind of that, first eye and first mouthpiece for the organization. So I it's just one of those things that, like, yeah, if there was some other president involved, or some other, list of executives between the owner and the general manager, maybe you see him make a different play. But for my eyes, that's kind of just the way it went. Imagine Pegula sitting up there by himself yesterday trying to explain everything away. That would have just been absolutely
he would have went off the rails even
Nobody
more.
would
Like,
have.
it was bad. It was so
Yeah,
bad.
they would have to
begin
usher
with.
him off.
Yeah. So I just think that he made what they saw as probably the safest play, and maybe the play that they think keeps them where they are for maybe the longer period of time. So,
Like, it just feels like they can't have two good things going on in Buffalo. Like, it automatically just feels that way. Like, if one's successful, you just have to take the other one down and just, pile drive it into the center of the earth and just try to ruin it. Because I don't understand, like, why he has to come out and say the stuff that he does. Like, the one where, like, they're asking Brandon Beane about, like, why do you feel like you hit, like, a playoff wall or whatever? And then he goes, well, it was a bad call. Like, or why'd you lose the game? A bad call? Like, come on. Like, that's not what your fans want to hear. Like, yes, everyone knows that it's a bad call, but as the owner of the Buffalo Bills, a week later, you should not be coming out and saying, hey, yeah, that's a bad call. That's why we lost the game. Like, come on. Be more
Yeah.
realistic.
Weird timing. It felt, it's weird to look, and I was just thinking this yesterday, like, if you look at the Jets aside, because the Jets they've never really, like, they've been the Jets for a long time, right? Yeah, please ignore the Jets. If you look at the Giants, though, you bring in John Harbaugh. This team went 4-13 this year, right? They're going to be picking second. And the Bills just lost in the divisional round. And yet it feels like the way their fan bases are looking at their seasons or their teams right now are completely opposite. Like, John Harbaugh had a press conference I think it was yesterday or the day before, and was like, if you don't love football, like, you shouldn't be here. Like, we're going to be football all the time. We're going to have a good time here, blah, blah, blah. And I can imagine being a Giants fan, like, I'm down. Like, this guy's going to take us to the promised land. And you look at the Bills, and the team is like, what the hell's going on here? And they made the playoffs for like 6 years in a row. I understand it's a very comparison to, like, the Leafs. Like, you only look at what have you done for me lately. But it's just interesting to think about where the two teams are and how the Bills fans probably perceive their group moving forward right now.
Now, the one thing I will ask you before we move on here is, in terms of a head coach, the favorite is Brian Dable, and that just does not seem like the best thing. Like, it honestly doesn't. And the thing is, when you think about it in a larger, like, profile, you fired a guy who has won a bunch of playoff games for you, has made the playoffs. I think it's 8 of the 9 years that he was there or something like that. Has made it to the AFC Championship game. The only thing he didn't do was win a Super Bowl. So how can you bring in a guy that is, like, I don't know, a Brian Dable type level of coach and say, yeah, this is what we're going to do for the future that's going to get us to the Super Bowl? Like, does it not feel like you have to go get a coach that has won a Super Bowl in the past? Or if not that, it has to be this, like, like the genius young coordinator, offensive guy that is just going to come in there and tear up the league.
You got a name, Brando?
I do, actually.
Okay,
so I do agree with you, Justin, first, that if there was a Super Bowl winning, I mean, outside of Mike Tomlin, I don't think he's a fit for this
No,
team,
he's not
obviously.
coming back. So
do you think Harbaugh would have had any interest if the timing lined up? Where
I think he would have had interest, but I think I think when he was interviewing for jobs, they probably they couldn't wait around for the Bills job to potentially open. Because think about it, like he was probably like the Bills were just getting into the divisional by the time he was probably
Yeah.
agreeing to that job.
He
So
probably
Yeah,
didn't
but
even think
he
it was.
could've
they could have been going to the Super Bowl and been
Yeah.
fine, and he could have,
Yeah.
he could have been sitting around and someone else takes that job.
he
So
could've
I,
waited because
yeah,
he was the most coveted coach on the market,
yeah,
like, no matter
maybe.
what way you looked
Well,
at it.
it does just seem though like as soon as the Schefter report came out that he was being fired, what was it? 40 minutes after we got the
Yeah,
7 teams that
they're
reached
calling
out
him.
to him,
Yeah, yeah.
and also I want to say like 20 minutes after that it was the Giants, the Giants, the Giants, the Giants.
Yeah.
So maybe it was
And I
never
And I do believe him
thing.
when he says at the press conference that Mando reference, like he seems to love the team. He thinks it's a very, very traditional franchise. Like I think liked the idea of being in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
So the Bills are not that necessarily. So while they maybe had the better QB and maybe the better situation for now, they're not that kind of spectacle team. I think that some coaches who have kind of done it all are going to look to and say, hey, I'd love to just go coach this, in this environment. So, but anyway, the guy, you're right. Like, I think the next guy should be a kind of up and coming young guy who can work with a Josh Allen on the offensive side and kind of try to do something not necessarily different, but try to, do something that maybe they haven't tried before, or that in terms of a group as well, like just be more open to how the offensive side works. And the guy that I'm looking at, I've seen some reporting around him being a potential candidate, but I haven't heard that he's been offered an interview or anything. But it's the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive coordinator. His name is Grant Udinski. And
Okay.
this guy, like 5 years ago, was not in coaching at all. He's only 30 years old. He'd be tied, I think, with Sean McVay for the youngest head coach in the NFL. But he was with the Vikings for a couple of years. Kevin O'Connell said he was like a football genius, said he's like really smart, has like elevated himself from like a coach's assistant in a few years to now, like I said, the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. Their offense was unbelievable this year with Trevor Lawrence. I think if he was a candidate and wanted to make a move, that's the type of guy that I would chase after. I wouldn't be looking at recycling a Brian Daboll. Yes, you've had some success with him in the past, but the team is now years removed from that. I think it's time to look forward and try to build with something different. So that's kind of the way I hope they go. But based on everything we've seen, it's not really like we can predict what they're going to do. So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch, and probably the job, like you said, Justin, now to keep your eye on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't mind that because I do agree with with the sense that the way he controlled that Jacksonville offense, it was humming. For like the last like what 10 weeks of the season, it was
Mhm.
unstoppable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really impressive. And like you said, he's so young. He's obviously intelligent. And like Liam Cohen comes from that Sean McVay tree. Obviously, you learned some information from there. You learned some information from a quarterback whisperer like Kevin O'Connell. So I don't hate that. I just think like if you're gonna fire this guy, you have to either bring in a guy like him or you have to go get the Super Bowl winning head coach. And I don't know who that is, considering there's not a lot of them out there right now. Like, is it John Gruden? Do you have to go get John Gruden to be your head coach? I don't know. That'd be kind of crazy, but that seems like right up Terry Pegula's alley. So who knows?